Molly O'Brien. We have a busy show for you today with a lot of important messages, so happy to bring that to you. Let's start off by saying hello and welcome to our first guest. I'd like to welcome Director of the Rhode Island Department of Health, Dr. Nicole Alexander Scott. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
We are very excited to have you in the studio today. Let's fill people in on a little bit of your background. Dr. Alexander Scott has a master's degree in public health. She is also an associate professor of multiple disciplines at Brown University, and she's been the director here in Rhode Island for a few years now. She is experienced and has specialists in infectious diseases for children and adults at hospitals in Rhode Island, and you're affiliated again with Brown University and the Rhode Island Department of Health. So we could be talking about a lot of things, but today we're going to focus on the ripple effect, which is the Rhode Island Department of Transportation's public awareness campaign about impaired driving. So let's dive right in and talk to you a little bit about your thoughts on the ripple effect and the message that it sends to people.
It's such a critical message. I've appreciated seeing that people have heard and embraced the ripple effect message, because impaired driving truly is a public health epidemic, and it's an opportunity that we all have to really make a difference about it.
A public health epidemic, those are strong words. In the videos that you have a couple videos featured online called a public health crisis. Talk to us about really what classifies as a public health epidemic, a public health crisis.
Well, Rhode Island, unfortunately, is one of the states with the highest rates of alcohol-related motor vehicle crashes, both in 2015 and in 2016. And it's not just alcohol. That is a major one, but there are other substances as well that contribute to impaired driving. There's marijuana, there are prescription drugs that could cause it, sedatives or others, any substances that alter someone's ability to drive safely. And it's something we all have an opportunity to do something differently about. And it's so important to talk about at our dinner tables with each other and take action on what we can do differently to prevent motor vehicle crashes.
Let's talk a little bit about that. Why are we having such a problem here in Rhode Island? What's going on here that maybe differs a little bit in other states? Do we know?
Well, we know that we need to address impaired driving overall. Other states are having issues as well. So we want to reach out and make it so that each person sees what role they can play in doing something differently. That's what a public health message and issue does. We challenge each other and we involve and engage each other on doing something differently. So when you go out with friends or with family, have a plan. Make sure you know if everyone drinks, there's going to be one sober driver that's going to drive people home. If you're the bartender at a facility, be a part of calling a cab for someone that you know who is impaired, so that they have a way to get home. Uber, Lyft, there's so many different ways that we can avoid now having impaired driving motor vehicle accidents occur. And a key is to start young. You know, our families can start at the dinner tables and talk to our children about what we can do differently, and then also model it for our children. That's a key as well.
Yeah, I want to get into all of that as well, because you have this message that we all need to do our part, which I find really interesting, that we all need to work towards this common goal of reducing fatalities. So I do want to get into that. I do want to talk a little bit more about kind of what's happening here in Rhode Island, because you do have this role as the director of health in Rhode Island's Department of Health. So I want to talk about this from the public health angle. And we do have some stats, and if you're interested in the statistical forms, we've had other experts in here kind of talking about, if you knew the stats, it would be kind of alarming. And I do find it alarming that even though the message is out there, we're continuing to provide this information, that numbers are going up rather than down. And we have the goal in mind, 0 fatalities within 10 years. You know, the state has set a target. We're continuing to see these numbers rise. So I do find that interesting. So looking at the numbers, stats from the DOT cite that in 2016 to 2017, Rhode Island saw a 61% increase in fatalities from alcohol-related crashes. And in your message, you said that on the ripple effect in the videos that you've done, you said we all have to do our part. We all have to do this together. Why was that your message rather than targeting individuals, saying don't drink and drive, but we all have to do something, stop people from drinking and driving? Why was that your message?
From a public health standpoint, our goal is to address the public's health. And that's something that we all play a significant role in. In order for us to really see the changes and to make the difference, it starts in our home, it starts in with our friends, and it starts at work, in normal conversations that we're having, or when we're going out together, how we can start to shift the culture. That's not going to happen with just saying don't drink.
Yeah.
It's only going to happen with the everyday person in our normal activities, at the dinner table, talking with our children, and then modeling it, being able to walk through what we're saying. We each play a significant role, and it's those small things that we can each do that allow for the big outcomes and improvements in the differences that we need.
Do you think it takes a setback, like an increase, and maybe being surprised overall, even though this has been a continued effort, year after year, maybe it takes an alarming standpoint like this to say, okay, we really need to do something to then push forward to reach that goal of 0 fatalities in 10 years?
Yes. We have to get each other's attention, whatever way we can. You mentioned some of the data. Almost 1 in 5 Rhode Island high school students report riding in a motor vehicle where someone has been drinking or someone is impaired.
Oh, that makes me sick. And those are the people that are just answering truthfully, right? How many kids are actually...
And among those of teenagers who have died, unfortunately, in motor vehicle crashes, 25% of them reported being in a motor vehicle crash that was alcohol related. So it's all about being able to be aware and informed of this data. It's also about being armed individually and knowing how each one of us can play a role, from grandma to the middle school aged child in the family. Everyone's voice is important. And then with that information, we can all live life, because you want people to have balance and be able to enjoy, but then to do it responsibly and to keep us at the 0 fatalities, because each one of these losses are preventable. And that's what public health is about. We have the opportunity to prevent, to shift our culture and make it so that we can enjoy life with each other, but do it responsibly and safely, and make sure that people are living.
Exactly. That's what I think is so prominent about the ripple effect, and what this campaign has done is that it shows how far the ripples really do go. Because we all deserve to live our life in a fulfilled manner, and it really does. If you can go on, watch the videos. We'll have links, obviously, but it shows the responsibility that we all must take. Talk to us a little bit about really reaching that wider audience, and why it's important, you think, through this campaign, that we all kind of step up.
Yeah, and I've appreciated the people that have, noticed or have paid attention to the video and chosen to do something differently as a result of it. It's really about making it tangible and making it doable. It's not this big, huge, different thing where everyone has to be an angel in order for us to really have the impact. It's really that small thing that each person can do. What a child can say to their parents when they're going out to drink. Who's your sober driver? How are you going to be safe? And when I said what our bartenders and so many other people can do to make a difference, and what we can do with friends, taking the keys if we have a friend who we think might put themselves or someone else in danger. Alcohol is, a real concern when it is misused in the way that causes lives to be at stake. Any type of impaired driving, alcohol, marijuana, other prescription drugs, we can all change our action as a result of knowing about impaired driving and help make sure that we save lives. That's really what it's about. It's about saving lives and knowing that each one of us can play a role in making sure that happens.
Oh, we are seeing an increase here over the past, and you can go online again and look at the numbers. The statistics are all laid out there for you. The DOT did a good job compiling things. The visuals are really good too, so they break it down and make it simple to read and to understand. So great job there on this campaign. I'm curious to know, because we're calling it impaired driving now, which I think it's good. You know, the message used to be drunk driving, and now it's called impaired driving. I'm curious here if these statistics broke it down, if we're looking at the opioid epidemic that we have here in Rhode Island is playing a part in these impaired driving fatalities and crashes.
It's absolutely something that we have to consider and be aware of. When we talk about impaired driving, I've talked about alcohol for sure, marijuana and other prescription drugs or other illicit drugs as well, cocaine, heroin. Fentanyl is a real concern that's being laced on all of those substances, or just taking prescriptions, whether it be an opioid prescription like Vicodin or Percocet, or a sedative like Benadryl. Is a prescription that can cause someone to have impaired driving. That's over the counter, actually. So it's being aware of substances that can impair your ability to have the quick responsiveness needed when driving, and minimizing how often someone is on the road driving impaired, because that's how we start to save lives. If you have a friend or family member, someone you love, who has any type of substance that's impairing their ability to get behind the wheel and drive safely, do something differently. Call a cab, call another ride for them, drive them yourself, take their keys, encourage them to go onto public transportation. That's why Department of Transportation is involved in this as well with us. We want to make sure that there are multiple alternatives that people can use so that we can save lives.
And I find it interesting too that as we see multiple and alternatives for transportation increase, we're still looking at crashes increasing as well. So as we continue this target goal, what is the strategic plan besides outreach? What are we looking at here in Rhode Island? We have very good messaging through this Ripple Effect campaign, but what comes next?
In partnership with Department of Transportation, there's an excellent 10-year plan for impaired driving. That's extremely comprehensive. This is a huge part of it. So much of what we do with substance use prevention is a huge part. Mental health and wellness is a huge part. And then also what happens on the roads. What can we do to make roads safer so that motor vehicle crashes decrease? That's another huge piece as well. So making sure that we are resourced to have the infrastructure in place to keep people safe is what a critical piece to this is. And we're happy to be alongside Department of Transportation in fulfilling every part of their impaired driving strategy over the next 10 years.
Excellent. And I really think that outreach effort from the mental health and the substance abuse aspect, I think, is fantastic, and working along with strategic partnerships as well. And that message that it takes all of us to do this.
Absolutely.
I think is so important, that you can't take all the responsibility or place it on someone. It's a public health issue.
It is.
Dr. Nicole Alexander Scott, before you leave us, what last words, last thoughts? I mean, we talk about how it's really everyone's responsibility, that we all need to do this, and really just don't do it. And that's kind of the message that we all take home. But if you do have one thing to say, what would you like people to know?
Let's teach our children. Let's model this. Let's start an entirely new generation of children that know about driving responsibly, that know about how to designate their sober driver, and that know about how to not engage in impaired driving so that we can save lives. So have normal conversations about it. Let's change the culture and change the dynamic of how we approach this. We absolutely can shift the direction that we're going in and make it so that there's a whole new generation that's never heard of motor vehicle crashes related to alcohol or some other substance. And it's something that we can all play a role in doing. I'm happy to be a part of it with you, and let's make that difference.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Dr. Nicole Alexander Scott, the Director of the Rhode Island Department of Health. Thank you so much for joining us here talking today about the ripple effect.
Thank you.
We're going to take a quick pause as we get ready for our next guest here on GoLocal Live. Please hang with us. On GoLocal Live, please hang with us. On GoLocal Live, please hang with us. On GoLocal Live, please hang with us.